Yeah, okay, so good afternoon everybody, thank you ever so much. It's so nice to see so many of you here this afternoon. I think we've got 3 sessions in total, 2 here and 1 at the depot. So if anybody misses it, if you know any colleagues in the office that haven't managed to come along, then by all means let them know there's other sessions. And I'm more than happy as well to come along to any meetings or to provide any additional information that you might need in the future. So just let everybody know that there's as much information as possible. I'm more than happy to speak to everybody. This afternoon, the leaders here with us as well. We've also got Ian from Dragonfly, so we've got lots of people here to answer any questions. Sarah here is at the end as well. She's part of our project group moving forward across the county, so she's also got really good insight into local government reorganisation and where we are with it at the moment. First of all, I just wanted to apologise because I've got the lurgy. I only came down with it yesterday afternoon. My voice went completely and now it's back, which is really good news, but I'm a bit full of cold, so apologies. I've got a glass of water and some road sweets in case I need them. I'll try to keep coughing to a minimum, so thank you very much for bearing with me on that. So, I just thought I'd ask everybody to come along to talk about local government reorganisation. We've had a couple of sessions in the past where I've touched on it, and I've also put quite a lot of information available on the ERIC, on the intranet, for you to have a look at. On there are all the key documents, the letters that we've received from government, and all the updates and presentations, etc. that are given to council. So if you do need any more information to fill in any gaps, by all means, go and have a look on the ERIC system under the LGR tab, which is on the far right. You'll be able to get more information there. There's also quite a lot on these slides today, so don't worry about missing any of it. I will also upload this presentation to ERIC as well, so if there's more information that you need from these slides, then by all means, have a look at that. It'll be on hopefully by the end of the week. I'll pass it to our comms department to sort that out. Okay, I'm just going to put my glasses on. So, just to recap where we are with local government reorganisation. At the end of the year, in December 24, we received the Government English Devolution White Paper. That's also on the website, on ERIC, if you want to have a look at that. It's a big, lengthy, thick document, and it outlines how the government are preparing for devolution across the country, and alongside that, how they want to go about reorganising local government generally. You'll be aware that in some areas, ours included, local government arrangements are very complex. We have several tiers of local government, particularly now we've got the new East Midlands Combined Authority and new elected mayor. We've now got an additional tier of local government. So in Derbyshire, we have the mayoral combined authority. We have the county council, which is the county council, which is a county function. We've then got the city council, which has a unitary kind of function, it does everything. We've then got 8 districts and boroughs across the whole county, and then we've got parish and town councils and a whole range of arrangements at that level as well. So it's extremely costly, quite complex for residents and businesses to get to grips with, and it has a huge amount of different types of legislation, funding agreements, funding settlements, which kind of drip from the top all the way down to the bottom of those arrangements. Is very complicated. So within that white paper, the government have outlined how they want to deal with that and how they want to reorganise into a much simpler function. So we had the heads up in December, and on the 5th of February, the leaders in Derbyshire received a letter from the Secretary of State inviting principal authorities across the whole of the county to submit our proposals for a single tier. What that means is that we will still have the combined authority at the top, the East Midlands County Combined Authority. We'll then have a single tier, this is what they want anyway, a single tier of unitary councils underneath that, and then underneath that you still have the town and parish councils. So the interim proposals had to be submitted by the 21st of March, and the full proposal, the full plan, which will be a very comprehensive, lengthy, chunky document, needs to be submitted to government by the 28th of November this year. So collaboration has taken place between the Derby City Council, the districts and boroughs to develop the interim proposal for March, and Derbyshire County Council were then invited to participate, but they declined that request and have submitted their own proposal, which we'll talk a little bit about in a second. So the first thing that happened is that the leaders from the City Council and the 8 districts boroughs agreed between them that they would work together to put communities at the heart of local government reorganisation, keeping services local to local people and to protect the county's historic boundaries. And that's quite significant because within the English Devolution White Paper there are opportunities for councils to look outside of their existing county boundaries. So if there was an appetite for it, we could have, for instance, started communications and started talking to Bassetlaw, Mansfield. We could have gone out and about across and outside of the county border to consider how we best form a new tier or a new proposal for local government. However, in Derbyshire, it has been agreed by the leaders that they wanted to retain the historic county of Derbyshire and keep it intact for local government. So that has not been changed. So the council started to work together to implement the government structures which best meets, design that which best meets the needs of residents. We've considered several options, evaluated them against the government's 6 criteria, and selected 2 of the best options which meet the government requirements. And all of those councils on that slide, all of those logos will be party to that. There's a slight caveat to the arrangements which were finally submitted, which I'll talk about in a second. They were slightly amended at the 11th hour, just with a small change, but that's how we moved forward at that point. So, the first thing we did was we commissioned KPMG. I'm not sure if all of you have heard of KPMG, but they are doing a huge amount of work. They're a consultancy company working with councils across the whole of the country. PricewaterhouseCoopers are also doing very similar work, and the way it just happens to have worked out really is that PwC are working quite closely with county councils, KPMG are working really closely with districts and boroughs, and they've got very good insight into both of those different types of organisations, so they're doing lots of work around those different types of councils and how they're going to put forward their proposals. We've been to a number, both the leader and myself, a number of meetings with leaders. We've looked at a whole host, I think it was about 15, 16 different options eventually, which I have copies of. So if anybody wants any more information, all of the options which were considered are part of the council paper. They're an appendix to the council paper which we took forward to council in March. So I've got all of that information to hand if you want to look at the different ways and the different ways that the county was considered when looking at the options available. So on the bottom of that slide there are 6 boxes which basically are the government's mandatory criteria. So any proposal put forward has to comply with that criteria and those aspirations for local government. The 2 main options which have been put forward by the districts and boroughs are option 1 and option 2 on that slide. You'll see they're very, very similar. So you have a north and a south unitary council. The south unitary contains Derby City, so it's a growing of the city council in the south, with the addition of the other councils. So you've got South Derbyshire and Erewash included at the south. And then the difference between the 2 proposals is that number 5 on the map there. So number 5 is Amber Valley District Council, and they're still not completely decided yet across the districts and the boroughs about whether Amber Valley will form part of the northern part of the county or the southern part. So the only difference there, as you can see in terms of population, doesn't knock us out of the criteria. So the government criteria stated that they want us to work with a principle of around about 500,000 population. They've made it really clear that that's not a target, it's not set in stone, it's a principle that they would like councils to consider when submitting their proposals. So it's not a hard and fast rule. We are allowed to go down to the 494 or up to the 622 that you've seen on that slide. And potentially some areas are looking at much smaller unitaries, maybe 350,000, 400,000. None of that is knocked out at this stage, but they have asked that we stick somewhere around the 500,000 if it's all possible. Another criteria that the government have said is that they really would like, and I think they recognise that this might not be possible, but they really would like one at conflicting proposals and having to make decisions between councils. So they really would like councils to work together to put forward the proposals in one place. So this slide will be available on Eric, as I mentioned earlier, but it goes through the criteria. I'm not proposing to go through it all now, but it really just identifies that the group of leaders and chief execs have identified all of the criteria on the left-hand side of the slide, which has been broken down into those bullet points, and where the proposal that was put forward in March identifies that the criteria meets that criteria. You'll see the ticks in the middle there, which gives us some kind of reassurance at this stage that we have really considered that criteria and that we have put forward proposals which really match that as much as possible at this stage. It's a huge amount of work to do yet. I think it's really important actually to stress that we are right at the very, very beginning of this process. There's a huge amount of changes that may take place between now and 2028. So another thing which has been confirmed is that there is a need for community engagement. There's going to be a huge requirement for consultation on these proposals, and as part of our submission we have confirmed that we will be doing some robust and inclusive community engagement across a range of stakeholders, including the lists there. There's an extensive list. When we get closer to the date after the government have made their decision on which proposal will be accepted and which will move forward, the government will also be doing extensive consultation across the area on that final proposal as well. So there's a lot of opportunity for all of our residents and businesses, yourselves, as you're obviously key stakeholders as well, our staff, our members, will all be invited to put forward their views and ideas in relation to local government reorganisation. Okay, so the latest position is that the County Council ended up submitting their own interim proposal. They were invited to join the other councils, but they declined that offer, and you'll be very well aware, I'm sure, of the fact that we are just heading straight into a County Council election on the 1st of May. So that is right in the middle of all of this work, so it's obviously key to acknowledge that and to understand that Derbyshire County Council are all in purdah at the moment, as well as some of those arrangements which cover our own communications as well. So it's a very sensitive period over the next couple of weeks in relation to those elections. They've submitted their own interim proposal. They've been very clear on that proposal, so they've been very clear on what that is, and they've submitted a proposal which includes the whole of the county as one kind of mega council, with the city remaining as it is in the middle. And you may have seen some publications, if you read the MJ, they talk a lot about donut councils, and if you see that term, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about county councils where you've got a city in the middle, which is a unitary authority, being donutted by a large existing county council around the edge. So that's the proposal that the county council have put forward, whereas, as I mentioned earlier, we've put forward the north and south option. Derby City went to their full council meeting to request approval to join us with the submission of the proposals. However, they had a request from their members for further time to consider the options. So since March, the kind of middle week, kind of 20th of March, around that week, since then, they've been doing more work with KPMG. All of their members have attended a workshop to go back and reconsider the options and to look at other options as well before they finally sign up to the final proposal. So they are part of our proposal, they're part of all the work, but their political arrangements at the moment is just requiring them to do a little bit more checking and balancing and getting that side off if they can get agreement through their full council. And they're looking to arrange further council meetings to have those full discussions with their members in due course. North East Derbyshire District Council had delegated approval for the submission, so that went through straight away. Then all the other districts and boroughs sought the respective approvals through their full councils on that week that we did, and we put that through ready for the submission in March as required on 21st of March. I think our meeting was on Wednesday the 19th, which was very well received, and we received approval for the recommendations. What's really important to remember is the position at Nottingham as well, because as part of the East Midlands County Combined Authority, there are other complications in the mix. So we want to have, for instance, a similar number of seats around that MPA table. We want to make sure that Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire, Derby and Nottingham are equally balanced and they're equally represented. So there's a very keen requirement for us to work together across Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire to pull all of this work together to make sure that it really works underneath the combined authority in the future. So they've got very similar arrangements to us where they're looking at a couple of different options in relation to some of the districts and boroughs. So just to outline those 4 points, so at full council, I think on, that should say BDC, sorry, not BCS. I'm not sure what BCS is, so there's a typo, apologies for that. So our council, Bolsover District, we've approved those 4 recommendations on the 19th of March. So we agreed the reorganisation submission proposal. We agreed that myself and the leader were able to make any minor technical adjustments to it before it went in. We agreed that we would still be able to continue to participate in the discussions between now and November. And we've also agreed that we will consult with residents and stakeholders to inform everybody of the development of the full proposal before the November deadline. That was all really well received. So just in terms of the latest update, since the proposals have been submitted, we've had another couple of webinars. So the leader has been on a webinar with her colleagues, and I've also been on an extensive one from MHCLG with all of my peers. And they've made it very clear that they're very pleased with the response to the request for the interim proposals. They received proposals, I believe, across every single area of the country that they were expecting them from. As far as I'm aware, there are no areas which have not been covered by a proposal. One of the things that they've said that we're not allowed to do is leave areas out. They don't want any orphan councils stuck out on their own, not included in proposals. They want a full coverage across the whole country of these arrangements. All 8 districts and boroughs will receive a letter, so we'll get a letter addressed to us specifically, but it will contain the same feedback that all the other districts and boroughs in Derbyshire receive, covering all proposals. So we'll get a letter back after the election, could be as soon as the 2nd of May, but it will cover both our proposal, the proposal of the County Council, plus that slight nuance that I mentioned earlier, which I'll talk about just at the end. So we'll get that back very soon after the county elections, once we're out of that period of sensitivity. It could be as near as the 2nd of May, although quite often it might, you may fall into the following week or the week after. As we find with most government correspondence, it tends to be around about those dates. The feedback will focus on the proposals and how we need to further develop them, but they've said categorically that they will not be ruling anything in or out at this stage. And the main reason for that is around the legislation. The legislation to enable them to agree or not agree these proposals currently is not in place. It's all been put forward in the English Devolution White Paper. It has a long way to go. So we're kind of twin tracking the legislation changes that are required alongside the arrangements that need to be put in place. So they're not going to be ruling anything out because they don't want to be subject to any kind of judicial review at this stage, but they will give us a really clear steer on where we need to go for the 28th of November. I don't think I've got it in the slide, but also just to make people aware that I don't think we'll get any formal decision making on any of this, and probably until this time next year. So this is a long period of time. It will definitely be 2026, and it's probably the first quarter of 2026, but it may well be kind of May time next year. So this is going to be an expensive, drawn out piece of work. So MHCLG, my microphone's gone a bit weird in my head. Very funny noise. MHCLG will assign us a point of contact within their local government reorganisation team, and will receive support in in-person meetings. Thank you very much. Thanks, Matt. Okay, so we'll get some feedback from the LGR team. will receive in-person support and meetings. The LGR have outlined a comprehensive support package. They're working very closely with their close organisations that work with the LGA, things like local partnerships and other areas, to make sure that all councils receive the advice and support they need, whether it be employment law, SIPFA, finance stuff. I think I'm back on. And kind of member support, HR, all that kind of thing. So if you imagine that the council will be completely abolished and we're going to be resetting up a whole new set of arrangements for a brand new council, which will include all of the governance, all of the legislative requirements, all of the regulatory stuff. It will include adults and children's social care, trading standards, a huge amount of work across all of those areas. If you can get some kind of gist of exactly how much work is required over the next 2 to 3 years. The government has also identified £7.6 million worth of capacity funding. That sounds like quite a lot, but when you think that's going to cover the whole of all the councils who are covered by these new arrangements, we probably will get enough to make sure that we do a good job of it, hopefully, touch wood, but we won't be getting a huge amount of money to enable us to build capacity in the council to do this work. The government are currently working through the details on the allocation for that, and we'll get more information on that in due course, hopefully with some cash to enable us to put in place any additional support, any additional capacity if we needed it. Just to mention, I've said it before, they reiterated the preferences for one proposal covering the entire area, although they have accepted that that might not be possible in all areas. And also I mentioned there about the 500,000 population remaining the same is a guiding principle and not a hard target, so that's what we're working with. So how will it affect us, Bolsover, over the next 3 years? So I've just listed there a few things, and I'm pretty sure that you'll be able to think of an awful lot more as we move through. I think the first one, which I've put quite a way down the list, is that it will be unsettling for yourselves and for me and for all of us at Bolsover and for members as well, senior leadership teams, service managers, all of us together. It is unsettling. We know that it's going to be something brand new for us, that we're going to have a new identity as we move forward. One of the things I would like to say, and I know I've said it before, but just to reiterate, is that all of the councils that have been through this already and are now doing a really good job of giving advice and guidance to everybody else now, and to let us know about their experiences and how it affected them and what they've been through as an organisation, have all said very clearly that they have not made large numbers of redundancies at all. It has to, day one has to be exactly the same as the previous day. There cannot be any gap in any service provision for statutory services. So we cannot have adult social care or children's social care being massively affected. We can't stop collecting council tax. We can't stop doing all of the really important work that we have to do. So those jobs will continue. And I think some councils are 6, 7, 8 years in, and they are still working with very similar arrangements. As they go through, they are potentially doing some reorganisation, some restructuring, but it's not a day one thing. It won't come as any surprise that probably the biggest impact will be my job. There will only be one chief executive of the council that we finally become part of. And there may be impacts on some of our director posts, like the statutory officer posts, because again, they don't need duplicate posts. But in terms of the day job and business as usual, I will keep you all updated and provide you with as much information as I can to give you as much reassurance as I can that these councils that have been through it have not had to undertake large numbers of redundancies. I've not heard one example of that yet. For some, I think they have to recruit more additional capacity because we'll need to work in transition, so we'll need a shadow council, we'll need an existing council, we'll need that vesting day, which is day one, and I think you'll find that there's quite a lot of work involved in all of that. It's also really important to let you know that a lot of people have talked about significant opportunities for staff. So where we're working in a district level, when that then forms a unitary council, there are potential significant opportunities for staff for personal development, for new opportunities, for much bigger, different types of services which we don't currently deliver here, as well as opportunities for promotion and all sorts of other things. Excuse me. So I really want to reiterate that point, really. This is the bit where I'm going to start coughing. In terms of the other ways it may affect us, I'm sure none of this will be any surprise to you, but there'll be issues around financial planning. We may find some of that challenging with members and with officers. Wanting to plan some major projects as we move forward. And some of the projects which we currently deliver are kind of 3-4 year capital programs, so very big projects. So some of that we will find challenging to move that through across the transition stage. I think it's really important that we also recognise that recruitment and retention of staff may be challenging for us. We've started some work with Peter and the rest of the HR team around what that might look like. We've started to dig into the staff survey results to find out exactly what staff want, what they've said, what they've commented on in terms of how they feel about working for Bolsover. What we have to do and what we have no option in doing is making sure we continue to do the day job throughout, so we will need our staff to really kind of stick with us and to continue to deliver the excellent services that you already do. In terms of resource implications, there's going to be a significant number of meetings, and my day job has already been massively impacted by this, so I'm constantly in and out of the building, in and out of the office with a leader, with members of cabinet, with other colleagues, and tomorrow we've got a big meeting with Scott. We've got a big comms meeting to talk through a comms programme, a comms workshop down in Hena across how we're going to manage the communications around all of this. So there's a significant amount of resource. Long-term decision making and continuity, again, I just mentioned that we need to carry on and carry on delivering as we have been. So what's happening next? I just mentioned actually a communications workshop taking place tomorrow down in Amber Valley area. We're having regular chief executive and leaders meetings. They were really full on up until the 21st of March. They've taken a little bit of a breather over the last 2 to 3 weeks so that we can catch up with work, and now we're going to be starting those fully again, I think, over the next week or two. We're working through commissioning KPMG to continue to pull together the full proposal. We've got a weekly project management group, which I mentioned earlier, that Sarah's part of, alongside a couple of other colleagues. I think Richard's at the back there, he's part of that as well. Meeting with colleagues across the whole of the county to pull together the arrangements that we're going to have to put in place around work strands, work themes, governance arrangements, financial planning, huge amount of work. And that will only get bigger and bigger as we move through. Following those meetings, we put in the diary some weekly catch-ups just across Bolsover here so that I can feed information down and they can feed information back to me to make sure that all of you are fully engaged. And also the ERIC LGR updates as well will continue to take place on the intranet. Just one thing that I mentioned earlier, which are not part of the slides, is the slight nuance. So when we submitted proposals right at the end of March, Amber Valley, as you'll be aware, are kind of in the middle of the arrangement. They're not 100% sure they want to do some consultation with their residents about whether they want to become part of the northern or southern part of the county. They also want to go back and just reconsider an option for 3 unitary councils. I think they've agreed with leaders that they'll go back and just double check that that's not suitable, but because the government have said that they are quite flexible on the 500,000 population, there's definitely time for us to now just quickly check that and make sure that we don't want to bring in a third option. I know at Bolsover, having met with colleagues and with leaders, we are happy with the north-south option and we're fully committed to that, but there's nothing to stop us now, just double checking that we are wanting to move forward with that, with our big proposal in November. The November submission will be extensive. We are talking probably old-fashioned telephone book type of document. It's going to be hefty. It's got to set out exactly how we are going to create a new council. It's not just high level, it's got to go into detail, it's got to talk about how we are going to be sustainable, how we're going to manage our finances, how we're going to continue with some of those really serious kind of life services that people really rely on in terms of adults and children's social care, how we're going to make that sustainable, because you're aware that some councils are really not sustainable at the moment and are facing various financial challenges. So it's going to be a hefty document that we are going to have to go into a lot of detail, and there'll be a huge amount of work taking place between now and November. So what I will commit to do is to keep you all updated, to keep you all in the loop, to answer any questions. I know that the comms team working across the county are looking at frequently asked questions, FAQs. So I've seen a draft of that, and as soon as that's been finished, I will place that as well on Eric so that you've got full access to all of those other frequently asked questions as well. Okay, so I think I'm going to open it up. There's myself, Ian, the leaders here, Steve, Sarah. Anybody who wants to dip in with any answers, feel free. Okay, over to questions. I feel like I've talked really quickly. Becky's go on.
Hello. Financially speaking, obviously we've been well managed in Bolsover,
Yes.
and we've got quite healthy reserves. How will that work when they're all merged for those that aren't as well financially managed?
Okay, so that's a really good topical question. It's receiving lots of political conversations as well around how that will be managed. There's lots of conversations around it in the publications, so the journals, around how that will be managed. So the government have made two things very clear. The first is that they're not going to bail out debt, so the government are not going to inject cash into those areas that are currently struggling. They expect local government reorganisation to manage the sustainability of councils long term. I think the only caveat to that is the handful of councils which are probably on Section 114 notices, which are really, really struggling, and they may have different packages in place for those. But generally speaking, they're not going to bail out councils' debt problems. The second point to make is that the government have also made it very, very clear that they expect councils to continue to manage their finances sensibly and responsibly. We are custodians of the public purse. We cannot decide that we are going to, suddenly have a big spend up or suddenly start to get rid of all of our assets or make any really financially worrying, decisions at this stage. What I can say is that our reserves are just about right. They've seen us through, and they will continue to see us through. I think we're required, is Teresa not in here, is she? No. So we're required to have around about the £2 million mark for unearmarked reserves, which we have in place, and our accountants are happy with that level of reserves. It's not too much and it's not too small, it's just about right. The other reserves that we currently have in place, we have a quite a large pot of reserves which is seeing us through the financial settlements. So when they start to change the rules around non-domestic rates and the business rates pooling that we've been in the past, we've got some money set aside to see us through that at quite a difficult time which we were expecting, and that will see us through the whole of the next MTF period to balance our budgets right up and beyond this 2028 date. So we have good financial management in place. Our Treasury Management advisors and our auditors, Mazars, are happy with it. We don't have millions and millions and millions of pounds shoved in a bottom drawer anywhere at all. It's all accounted for, it's all part of our financial statement, and we will continue to manage it appropriately and correctly in accordance with the wishes of members, really. Members are the ones that decide how we spend that. It's quite a long answer, isn't it? Sorry. But do you see what I mean? It's a balance between responsibility and debt management. Yeah. Anybody got anyone asking more questions? Oh, yes.
So if it works on the system.
Yeah, switch yours on, I'll switch mine on.
3 questions actually.
Right, okay, better get my pen out.
First one, there's council's been fast tracked first April 2027.
Yeah.
I just wondered, is it likely they give any indication of where we're going with this in terms of the government approach, or is it very much on an individual county-wide basis, I suppose, at the end of the day? So that's one question.
Okay.
Again, I suspect I don't know the answer to this, but is there any consideration to split districts? The only reason I ask that, because certainly if you look at Amber Valley, it was to go with the North Derbyshire. From a planning point of view, I think that creates difficulties in terms of how does the city expand to the north. Makes it a lot more complicated on that basis. Similarly in Nottinghamshire, having come from Ashfield, Hucknall is bounded by both sides by Roadshow getting it. So again, it's a question that would make not logical sense to split. Now again, politically, that might not be acceptable to certain councils at the end of the day. Finally, consultation, I just wonder what weight is given to the sponsors. And that's really in the context, I'm from Nottinghamshire, and Nottingham City has obviously gone into a section 114 position, and the perception from local people is we don't want anything to do with the city because financially we're going to be a lot worse off if we go with the city in terms of council tax. Now that's a very short-term view in a way because you're talking about interest, obviously you're talking about over a number of years, but how long does that carry in that sense?
Right, fantastic, all really good questions. So the first one around the fast track programme, we're not on the fast track programme. So in terms of local government reorganisation, there's 3 cohorts. The first cohort is Surrey Council. Surrey County, they are being fast tracked through really quickly. They've had to have their full proposals in, I think by May of this year, with a start date of 2026. So it's a really, really fast track programme, almost like a pilot, I think. The second cohort is the priority programme. We're not part of that. So those are areas where local government reorganisation is holding up the creation of combined authorities. So where you need local government reorganisation to open up the mayoral election, then those councils are in line for 2027 start date. So they're the second cohort. We are in the third cohort, so we already have our mayor in place. We don't have to do anything for the election. Our mayor was elected last year, so we haven't had our elections deferred. You'll probably have heard in the news that some councils requested deferment of the county council election. Ours is going ahead, as Becky well knows, in 2 weeks' time, and we're full on with the election. So we are part of the third cohort with the vesting date expected to be the 1st of April 2028. There has been some conversations, but again it's only conversations about whether the government and the civil service have enough resources to see all of these councils through this programme by that date. However, they have been very clear with us on the webinars that they are resourcing themselves adequately to ensure that they meet this deadline within this Parliament. So they are keen to get the work done so that the final remaining councils will be reorganised by the 1st of April 2028. The second question is really interesting around split districts. So that is contained within the English devolution white paper. So there is the opportunity to move outside of the county and also the opportunity to change boundaries. The government have also made it clear that they, whilst they are not stopping that happening, their preference is that districts and councils, I think they've worded it in as much that districts and borough councils will form the building blocks of the new council, the new unitary organisation. If we start to look at splitting councils up, then you have a whole new area of work around boundary commission work, around elections. So the boundary commission have been put on alert. They are aware that they may have work coming their way across the country in relation to redrawing boundaries with regard to elections. In Derbyshire, there's been no request or no ambition currently from any of the leaders across Derbyshire to split any of the districts in half currently. The leader might want to comment on that at the end, but as far as I'm aware, there's no political aspiration within Derby and Derbyshire to split any of the districts up and to create additional work around the boundary commission stuff, which Becky will probably not be looking forward to if they started to do that. The next question is really topical. So the weight of the consultation responses is again another difficult one. So the government have made it very clear that the minister will be deciding the outcome of this. So the minister will be looking at all of the proposals with the civil servants, obviously, who will be pulling it all apart and going through all of it. The minister will then make a decision, and that minister's decision will be final. So the weight of the consultation will all be thrown into that mix and will form part of that. But one of the things that the Chief Executives Group is currently considering is what is the weight of the consultation, how much of that consultation work do we want to do, when do we want to do it, how do we want it to look, what do we want the publicity to look like, how will that image kind of, that almost like a sales piece, how will we ensure that the residents are coming on board with us throughout this whole very lengthy, unsettling process. So we don't yet know what the weight of the consultation is, apart from the fact the government have said that they want it extensively, and they want us to fully outline the results of that when we submit our proposals. But in terms of a technical weight, I can't give you that answer yet, but as soon as I find out, I will let you know, because that's really topical and it's having quite a bit of debate at the moment. Okay, any more questions?
Just one about Dragonfly. Is there been any considerations as to if it will be integrated into the new county, and to what sort of capacity that would be the case?
Okay, I'll start off the answer and then Ian, okay, but just in terms of my experience of what I've heard so far, so several councils have been through this process already, locally and nationally, and they've all stated absolutely categorically that all of the companies, so whether it be an Almo, like Rickwood Homes, or whether it be a wholly owned company, like our two Dragonfly companies, they literally lift and move across. So in terms of the backstop position, there is no issue in terms of the companies being taken forward into local government reorganisation. So they are definitely part of the council and will continue on the journey with the council. In terms of the local staff with Dragonfly, I'm going to pass over to Ian, if that's okay. Thanks, Ian.
I thought you did very well, but yeah, in terms of looking forward, we're looking at different options to make sure that whatever decisions are made, Dragonfly is in a position to continue to deliver for the future. From a staff point of view, the same protections are offered for everybody within Dragonfly as well. And every decision will always put staff first.
Just to add to that, I know the leaders will jump in as well, but the council is very committed to ensuring the best interest of all staff within the council and within Dragonfly. They have made a commitment to ensure that any decisions that are taken are in the best interest of the residents, the businesses and the staff. And the staff are recognised in the white paper as being a key stakeholder, so yeah, 100%. I don't know, Jane, would you like anything to that or not at the moment? Please mark at the end.
No, I would just reiterate what you said, really, Karen. I think as well, It's really good to see so many of you here today. And when the consultation goes live, it's really vital that you all feed into that. So please fill the consultation in, because I'm sure that as well as being our workforce, a lot of you will, probably most of you will live in the county as well. So, you know, you have got some visual aspect to it. So please do complete that and give your views so that you are contributing and your views are counted.
Oh yes.
Can I just ask just a quick question? In terms of the pension fund, is that still going to be run by the county, no matter what option we come up with, or will we have our own?
I haven't got the answer to that question, I'm afraid. It's a long way down the path, I think. We're under the work that Sarah's doing. I think HR will be a strand of work, won't it? So there'll be a lot of work around all of the terms and conditions for all of the staff. I think the Pension Authority, off the top of my head, although I'm aware I'm being filmed and don't want to be held to this, but I don't see that the County Pension Authority will change specifically. Has anybody got any ideas on that? Have you heard anything, Sarah?
I don't think it's not
No.
talked about yet, but it
I don't
was
want to
one work stream.
I don't want to commit myself to an answer because I know that there'll be lots of conversations around all of this. I don't think it's anything to worry about, but I will take that away and I will get back and let everyone know the answer. Sorry.
Certainly be heavily protected, won't it?
Yes.
No matter what.
Well, nationally as well, yes. Yeah, there's lots of national arrangements in place for big pension pots, as you know, so yeah, it will be protected, definitely. Peter, have you got any answers to that question? No? Anybody got anything else? I'm really conscious that sometimes I get a bit of a roll and I just talk all the way through these presentations because obviously we're working with it a lot. There's a lot of different language, a lot of things that you may have questions about. So please, can I ask that any questions that you've got, you send them to me. If there's any way that you think we could do these better, then please let me know. I don't want to really just sit and give you all this information without making sure that you are absolutely happy and reassured by it. So please let me know if you've got any ideas, anything around kind of engagement with different teams or with unions or with staff members. So please let me know, because I'm used to really talking to the senior leadership team about some of this stuff which they're fully engaged with and aware of the different scenarios and different language. So I really don't want you to go away thinking that I've just blurted out a whole load of kind of information that you're not fully happy with. So please let me know any feedback. I'd be really grateful for that. Jane, have you got anything else that you want to add in terms of the political side of what we've been talking about?
I don't think so, Karen. I think, I know we were talking about splitting the districts, etc., and cross-boundary options. I think the leaders were all very clear that our option did tick all the boxes for the criteria, so the north and south, and that the county option really doesn't tick all the boxes. So I think we were all quite happy that our options will be given full consideration because we don't tick the boxes. There was no real, although we might have wanted to go cross-boundary or wanted to consider it, we might have then lost our option to the county option, and in our view that was just too big, too big an area for one council, and certainly as an elected member the ones would just be too big and we'd lose that local connection with our residents. So the option that was submitted we felt politically was best option, really. I think it might be worth, once we've done the final submission, maybe leading up to that, getting some working rules, not just for elected members but for staff as well, to get involved and feed your views in. I don't know how you feel about that, Karen.
No, yeah, I think that's a really good idea. The more engagement, the more working groups we can set up to get everybody involved in what it might look and feel like in 2028 would be really, really good idea. Sarah, have you got anything from the work you've been doing?
In particular, I think you picked one amazing, Karen, in terms of the FAQs. That's something the coordination group that I'm part of working on quite closely. And I think the sooner we can get those out to members of staff, will hopefully help to answer some of their questions. And like you said, if anybody thinks of any other questions, we can always add to that document. So we're more than happy to do that. But that's a bit of work stream
thank you. I would like to start to build up a bit of a library of FAQs. I think it would be really useful for all staff, whether there be new staff coming into the organisation, so we can see a bit of a history of the frequently asked questions and build up a bit of a library around that. So any questions that you go up, send them through to us and we will collate them, put them together and make sure that they continue to be recorded and logged and answered in full.